elemental astrological powers, the 12 astrological powers, and their ability to create on this earth, their ability to project through their different angles. See, like the angle of Aries is always in the morning. The angle of Aries is between 6 and 8. And at that angle, the sun hits the earth. It has a different ability or creative power than it does when it's up at 12 noon, between 12 and 2. That would be the sign of Cancer, the lungs. Now, if you can put that in your pipe and smoke it, or just chew on it just a little bit, you would see that the sun has different qualities at different angles, right? Well, is there no sun shining on the earth between sunset and sunrise? In other words, we call that night, darkness? No, there's power and energy that's coming to the earth, emanating to the earth, even though it's shadowed. You hear what I'm saying? It's just shadowed, but it's still there. It's still there, okay? So, when I'm talking about the mothers, in ancient Hebrew, there were called three mothers, and the three mothers overshadowed everything, and they were the Aleph, the Mem, and the Shin, and those were called the three mothers out of the Hebrew alphabet. And from that three mother concept, everything come forth. And the way it did, it used a word in ancient Hebrew, and the word in ancient Hebrew was amar. Aleph, Mem, Resh. Amar. Everybody say amar. Amar. It's almost like amare. You heard that? That's amare. Amar. And so I want to talk about the amar. I'll do it this way. And you know what this is. This is what is called in ancient Hebrew, this is called the Kabbalistic tree of life. So if we're talking about the tree of life, this is the tree of life. And in this tree, if you'll notice, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 10 circles. Those are called 10 sephiroths. In Genesis chapter 1, there are 10 times the word said is used. 10 times in Genesis chapter 1. Okay? Now I'm laying you a foundation for everything that unfolds, just like a domino. Everything that unfolds from Genesis 1, when you look at it from the ancient Hebrew, everything that comes forth from that is revealed throughout the rest of the books and many other books. Not just these that we have in this book we call the Bible, but many other, a plethora of books. And many times you have to have many of the other books. Like for instance, in the book of Genesis and the book of 1 Samuel, it talks about the book of, gosh, it just went, golly, where'd that go? Anyway, if you don't have that particular book, and which you can buy, you can go to the bookstore and buy it. Used to you could buy it at the Christian bookstore. I don't think you can now. Used to you could. 35, 40 years ago, so I actually bought it at a Christian bookstore here in Dalton. Years and years ago. And that book clears up a lot of the muddy water if you're reading some of the stories in 1st and 2nd Samuel or 1st and 2nd Kings that doesn't seem to make up, you know, like for instance, if you make the sun stand still in a store and you're just left hanging there and you don't have other ingredients to see what's going on or what's being said, then you're just kind of left to just grab at the air, grab at nothing and come up with crazy ideas. And that's what happens. So you have other books that add to that give a clearer picture. Does that make sense? And so if you don't read those books, or if you don't have the ability to extract from those books, you won't really know what they're saying. So when you read in Genesis chapter 2 about a tree of life and a tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you try to separate it, make it two trees when it's really just one tree, and not even know what it's saying, then you come up with crazy ideas. And we have. And we get stuck in many of those ideas. So 10 times, like for instance in Genesis chapter 1 verse 3, It's the first time you see the word said. Verse 6, second time. Verse 9, third. Verse 11, etc. And every time the word said, what do you think when you hear the word said? You think that out of the mouth of God, He spoke, right? So automatically what you do with that concept and idea, automatically you build an anthropomorphic God. And there is no such thing. Is that right or wrong?
That's right.
It just is.
You're going to build an anthropomorphic. In other words, you're going to build some kind of a figure of some kind of a dude, some kind of a human form. And because how's he going to use the word said? He's got to have a tongue. He's got to have vocal cords. He's got to have the ability to speak. That's not the biblical Elohim. Because God don't have a tongue. Because God is not a man. It tells you that in the book of Exodus. It tells you that God is a spirit. If you look at Genesis chapter 1 verse 3, the first time you see the word spirit, which is the Hebrew word ruach. And you know what? It says it's undefinable. What are you going to call it? Well, we don't know. Let's call it the air. Let's call it space. You can't see it. Jesus even used this analogy in John chapter 3. He said, here's the way the Spirit is. You see that tree moving? He said, that's the Spirit doing that. Oh, it's the wind. Yeah, no, you don't see it. You see what it does. You see its effects. Well, see, it's just like I say this about human beings. The only way any human being can be is they have to be baptized. They have to be filled. They have to be breathed by the Spirit. So the first thing that a child does when it's exited from the womb, it's not breathing in the belly of its mama. Is it? No. So the first thing that happens when it's pushed out of the womb, what does it have to exist here?
Air.
Breath, air, Spirit. So when it does that, it's filled with the Spirit. And what's the very last thing that leaves it when we say that it's deceased?
Breath.
It's breath. That's the last thing to go. And when that's gone, it's gone. So, breath, spirit, another word called is life. The tree of life. These are pictures. This is a symbol. But if we can extract what the truth is in the symbol, then we can find bread for life. We can find when Jesus said, eat my body, drink my blood. You know, I remember years and years ago when I studied from Brother Dake, I said, is that literal, Brother Dake? No, tomfoolery. And I said, well, why then do you tell me to take the Bible literally? Oh, he'd get mad. Well, you can't take it literally and ever take it. I said, so, is it spiritual? He said, yes. I said, well, if you made it all spiritual, then it would all spiritually make sense. If you make it all literal, it don't literally make any sense. They would get all upset, they don't know what to do with that. So, when you say God said and God doesn't have vocal cords, what does that word amar mean? Actually, it means the emanation of power. It just simply means the emanation. In other words, it comes from where? Nowhere. There's nowhere to define it from where it's coming from. We just know it's coming forth. That's what that word means. It's coming forth. So God didn't have to have vocal cords. God just simply issued. You understand? It's just an issue. It's coming forth. What is it? It's coming forth is power and ability. So if we can learn to balance that power and ability for our greater good, then we would get a benefit from that. We would get much benefit. So this phrase, the tree of life, this is the tree of life in Kabbalah. It has the 10 Amar. It has that 10 Sephirots. And these represent the Trinity. That's what these top three are. These are a Trinity in themselves. And in that Trinity, you can call it, if you like, Father, Mother, Child. Or you can call it Father, Holy Ghost, and Son. There's many. Or you can call it Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Or you can call it Osiris, Isis, and Horus. All of these names and terminologies I'm giving you are different cultures' idea and concept of this energy we call Elohim, God. It always is shown in a threefold manifestation. And I know, I'm praying that this will be, and this will not be confusing. I know that sometimes it is. And here's how it is. It starts out with this center. This one is called Keter. The very top one. The first one is called Keter. Or, in other words, it's the crown. It's the crown. It's referring to the crown of the head. The top of the head, which is referring to the top of the head, which is referring to the brain. And the thing about the brain is it has a left and right hemisphere, does it not? And in that left and right hemisphere, it has a male side and it has a female side. Does it not? Yeah, everybody knows that. So, you are a Trinity because this is how you start out. This is how you begin to... Matter of fact, the very first thing when that seed penetrates that egg, and just within a few days, just within hours, that seed begins to build a brain. It does. I mean, that's just a biological fact.
Lunchtime, you old fart.
Just a biological fact. See, there I was. They agreed. I guess that was that Siri. She talks back to me sometimes. No, she Siri will say, "Hell yeah, I know that's right. I've been down there too." They're watching us. They're watching everything we say. Somebody said that I got, what Kirby said, he put one of my things on TV, on YouTube or something, and it got kicked off or got banned. I must have said something political in it. I don't know. It got knocked down. So this Trinity, and to understand this Trinity, you have to understand the balance of the power. You have to. And we start out like this. And I want you to see this, something else that we're going to pull on this in just a few minutes. This is the astrological wheel. And I'm going to call that the horizon, the horizontal mark. And on this side of the horizon, this is where it always starts right here. This would be called sunrise. Sunrise. And this is also called Aries. And its symbol, its picture, is that. Aries. Its symbol, its picture. So it's the head. First thing, now, I mean, every bit of this stuff is in stone. It's non-negotiable. You can argue it and fuss about it, do all you like to do, but it's in stone. This is sunrise. It's always Aries, no matter where you go on the planet. It's always referring to the head, the crown. That's the very thing that's beginning to be built in the temple of God, the house of God, which is the physical body in the womb of your mother without a hammer and a saw. It makes no noise. It's just being done. For anybody and everybody, I don't care whether it's a Hitler or a Billy Graham, it just don't matter. What they grow up and become is up to them. God created them to be, and they be whatever they be. And then we all get together and we pass judgment against them or for them, and then join with them or turn against them. And Jesus said it very clearly in Matthew chapter 6 and 7, don't judge anything, don't judge anybody. Matter of fact, that was a precept and a concept in the Old Testament. Non-judgment was a concept and an idea, and I'm telling you that is a challenge. Have you ever tried to live your life day by day without judgment? It's a difficult thing to do. And there is a difference between judgment and discernment. You have to have good discernment. You have to see there is a fine line here. There's a balance between that power. But judgment doesn't do anything other than boomerang. You know, if you're going to pick up stones and throw at somebody, you're going to have to realize most stones are a boomerang. They're going to come back and hit you in the back of the head. Pass your judgment, it'll come back on you. Starts out with Aries. That's the symbol, the sign of Aries. It's found right here to show the differences in the crown of the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. And the ram, of course, it's talking about, what is it talking about? Where does the horn come out? The symbol, the top of the head. This one over here is called Libra. And it looks like this. It looks like that, sort of. And it got called the scales of judgment. That's what it got called. And so here is where we begin to get off track, because it's not the scales of judgment, and that's how we look at it. I mean, that's in the courts of law now. You'll see those scales up there. It's the pelvic bone. And this is probably the most important, even so above this one. But if you look at Aries, there's two sides to Aries, a left and a right. If you look at the pelvic, there's two sides to the pelvic, a left and a right. And if you have a problem with balance or walking, then you won't walk straight. You'll walk crooked, or as they say in the South, crookers. Right? In other words, you walk off balance. That's exactly what I was talking about a little while ago when I said, if you get intoxicated, you can't walk straight. That's how they say, well, you're drunk. You're off balance. But if we call it and Libra is, if you follow the powers, the astrological wheel, if you follow the astrological wheel, everything about this wheel will build the physical body. You'll have the head, the brain. You'll have Leo, that's referring to the lower neck, the lower brain, the shoulders. This is where I'll do it myself. That Leo stubborn bull. Then you come up here and you'll have Gemini, the twins. It's the right and left. Your physical body's divided that way, just cut right down the middle, and everything's on the right, is mirrored on the left, everything on the left mirrored on the right. Period. It's just that way. And you'll come right on up in here, you'll have Cancer of the lungs. You'll come around through here, you'll have Leo, the lion, the heart. You come over here to Virgo, you'll have the abdomen, the womb, your strength, and you come right here to Libra, from which your two legs. And you come all the way around the same until you get to right here. And what have you got right here? Pisces, the two fishes. Your feet. So from the head to the feet, every bit of this is in stone. Every bit of it is a beautiful picture of who you are and how God designed you to be. No matter where you live, no matter what your color of skin, it doesn't matter. It is a beautiful picture and pattern of you. And we all have that pattern. We all have that inside us. And so whenever God said, Genesis chapter 1, the word said, amir, amar, means to emanate or to issue forth. To issue forth creative power. Well, can that work with you through your vocal cords as you speak? Absolutely. Go with me to 1 Peter. We'll start out over here if you can find that in the Old Testament. 1 Peter. Just look at a verse. I just want you to see this verse right here in 1 Peter. Which we know it. I think most of us probably maybe can quote it. Many of us can probably quote it. But nevertheless, it won't hurt nothing to look at. It's in the New Testament. So if you have an index, you can look over there and it'll tell you what page. If you look at the date Bible, it's on page 265. Okay, everybody on the same page now? So, 1 Peter, it's in the back. If you go to the book of Revelations to the back and you'll go back toward the front, it's only about 4 or 5 books over. You have Revelations, you have 3rd John, 2nd John, 1st John, and then you'll have 2nd Peter, 1st Peter. Something like that. Okay? Everybody there? I want you to see a verse, one verse. Chapter 1, verse 23. Everybody got it? And it says, these words, being born again, not of corruptible seed. That word seed in the Greek is the word sperma. Can y'all say that? Sperma. We get an English word from that word sperm. What is the English word? Sperm. What is a sperm? A sperm is a male seed. Now, does a woman have a male seed? Yes. What is that male seed? Well, let's just look at it and read a little bit further. Being born again, not of a corruptible seed, but an incorruptible by the what? Everybody say word.
Word.
So what is a word?
The seed.
A word is a sperma. A word is a seed. A word is something that you say, that you plant in an environment, no matter who you are, where you're at. So does a woman have a seed? Yes, she has plenty of them. Can they talk? A lot. Sometimes more than men. Sometimes not. Not throwing these stones at anybody. I get in trouble, but you understand what I'm saying. So are words important? Oh, absolutely, yes. And do you have to find an importance in the balance of words? Yes, absolutely. And only you can do that. This is not something that you're made to do. This is not something that you just believe. Well, we believe this. We believe we got to say certain words. You can say any kind of word you want. It's your word. It's your word. What does your word plant? Does it grow? Yes. Yes, you have to come to realize that. I remember years ago in Charismania, when I was all blown up in Charismania, I heard one of the charismatic preachers say something about paying attention to your words. And when he's using an analogy, he said, well, I'm sick. And he used an analogy like, are you really, or do you want to be? And I said, no, I really don't want to be, but I say that I am. Well, is my word planting a seed that I'm going to be sick? It could be. It could be. I'm talking about balance here now. I'm just saying, paying attention to my word, because my word has power, because the word is emanated out of my inner being where God resides. Yeah, okay. So it could just very well be the word of God. Could be. Most likely is. You mean even when I'm spewing off? Yes. Yeah, so that, this is something you have to mull this over, chew it, or whatever. So this seed, this sperma, is not the corruptible seed, is the word of man. The incorruptible seed is the word of God. Either way, it's seed, it's male. Everybody has this, because remember, this is a picture of the physical body. It's a picture of the tabernacle. And so if I'm going to spell this word, say it in Hebrew, Aleph, Mem, Rash. And so if I look at this word, and let's see, if I do gematria, y'all remember, gematria is where you take the value, like the Rash has a 200 value, the Mem has a 40 value, and the Aleph has a 1 value. And if you take those and add them together, you come up with 241, right? 241. You see that number? Which equals what?
7.
Exactly. It equals 7. So, if you come over here, in Genesis, you'll see this picture. This is called 7 yoms. The 7 yoms, and these 7 yoms and the word in Hebrew, yom, means facets of life. Or it's translated also for the word happy life. Or it's translated in Psalms 91, I think it's verse 14, with long life. The word long life is yom. So it's translated that way many places. Long life, happy life, extended life, full life. Has to do, again, the tree of life. So when you remove the Trinity, or not remove it, you actually take the Trinity and deposit the Trinity in the tree of life. How many sephirots do you have here?
7.
You have exactly 7. The same number as 7 is actually the number of man. And we call it the complete number. We call it the perfect number because it is. Because you are the complete, you are the perfect house, tabernacle, building, body of God. You are. You know, and it's not based off how you, well, I don't feel like it today. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you feel. I didn't act like it today. It doesn't matter how you act like it. I mean, it does. It's you. You get to be who you are designed to be. Religion has brought you under this mantle of judgment over here by not understanding this balance. But they brought us under this judgment, this concept of you did or you didn't. You got to or you ain't. You can or you can't. You did or you didn't. You know, it's all that mess. It's clothesline religion. And it never served anybody. It's never done anybody any good. It's never accomplished anything. But nevertheless, that's what people get stuck in those things. So when you come over to the book of Genesis, chapter 1, again, it's a foundation. This thing, when you get it right, when you can get Genesis 1 right. I've heard people say, Lynn, you can preach the rest of your life out of Genesis 1. You're right. Why? There's so much there. It's about everything. It lays the foundation for everything that is, everything that will be, from a human being down to the lowest insect. It's every bit just exactly that. It's like Sadhguru said. He was telling this scientist, him and this scientist were in a dialogue, and he was telling this scientist that he could define everything that exists in the entire universe with 5 words. And that scientist said, oh, really? And so Sadhguru got to said, yeah, you have to have 500,000 words to try to define all of this and explain it, and and then you're still asking questions, you're still confused. He said, and Sadhguru says, I can define it with 5 words, and you can find all 5 of them in a mustard seed. And you know what that scientist said to him? Well, are you going to tell me what they are? He said, no. No, he didn't. He said, I'll tell you exactly what they are. Fire, earth, air, and water, and in the English language, space. He said it's from those 5, any and everything is built, period. That's the truth. So when you take the Hebrew word Yod-He-Vav-He, or the Hebrew glyphs, Yod-He-Vav-He, those are 4 glyphs. We translated those 4 glyphs for a word that we named, English word. We named that word Jehovah. And we took that word Jehovah and then we equaled it out to mean Jesus, which is a name that didn't even exist until the 12th century. There was no such name as Jesus until the 12th century. Whoa, I didn't know that. Well, most people didn't know that. But there's still. So when you take fire, earth, air, and water, and you can build them right here. They're built right here. Fire, that's Aries. Earth, that's Taurus, the bull that plows. Fire, earth, air, that's Gemini, the twins, and water. And you can find this seasonally. That's the way they play out. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got. And you can do this 3 times in this chart. Aleph, Mem, Shin, and then you have the 3 mothers. So you can do the fire, earth, air, and water, fire, earth, air, and water, fire, earth, air, and water. 3 times, and again, you come right back to this, which is the ether, which is the space, which is a whole lot better word than heaven. Because heaven is not the word that we think heaven is. Heaven ain't got nothing to do with the planet. Heaven has to do with this left hemisphere and this right hemisphere. Heaven is Shin Mem, which is water with breath, and Yod Mem, which is fire with water. And from that you build the heavens above, right here, the heavens above, and the earth beneath. You build the spiritual, and you build the physical. And as a result, guess who that is? That's you. You're both divine and human. You're both heaven and earth. You are. And if you go looking for it, and you don't realize it, and you look in the mirror and you see it, and it's you. Oh God, there I am. Here I am. So for the manifestation of all this design, it must go through, for this design right here to manifest, for it to come forth, it must go through this thing we call transfiguration. Have you ever heard of that word transfiguration? That's called metamorpho. So what does metamorpho do? It goes from a worm. That's what they call us. You know, y'all are just worms crawling in the dirt. It goes from a worm to a butterfly. That's one of the good analogies for it, metamorphosis. So what happens? You go from just your human lower self, physical, and the reason I use these are used in the Hebrew scriptures as the Thurim and, let's see, the Thurim and the Tum. Yeah. But yet in Hindu script, they're called the what? The yin and the yang. Either way, they're referring to the spirit and the physical. They're referring to sunlight and dark light. They're referring to the same identical thing. And the division is always in the heart. Always in the heart. And it's always in your heart where you're going to work out your balance. Always. You're not going to work it out because you go to church and you do all the rituals. You're not going to go because you believe all the right beliefs. You're going to work it out because in your heart you find balance for you. The balance you find for you is not the balance somebody else will find for them. And if you judge them for finding a balance that's different from your balance, you are in error of your own judgment. And that's hard. That's difficult. You're going to let somebody be, and by your judgment, they're not measuring up. I'm guilty. I don't know. I'm guilty. I have to watch myself. I get caught guilty of this, sad to say, on a regular basis. Why? Because it seems to be that's my normal function. That's my normal operation. I want to read you something out of this little book right here. See if I can find it. Transfiguration. He says, and this is written by a guy by the name of J.F.C. Fuller. I think he was born in 1874 and died in 1947. So he's been dead for several years. And the title of this book is The Secret Wisdom of Kabbalah. So it's a little book, and I'm reading something out of something in it to resonate. Don't Google it and buy it. It may not be worth what you pay for it. It does say a few things that's worth extracting. Okay, so he says, finally, transfiguration can only be accomplished through action. I wrote a word in place of his word action. And I wrote this word right here, dance. And the reason I wrote dance is because dance, if you're dancing, you don't have a destination. You ever seen anybody on the dance floor and says, okay, we'll start here and we'll wind up over there? Did anybody do that? Linda, you're a big dancer. Did you ever get on the dance floor and say, we're going to start here, but over there is where we're going to wind up? No. Why? Because dance is an experience. It's not an action where you're going to do something. That's exactly what people do. Oh yeah, you're up there doing, but you're experiencing things. And so it's a complicated concept and idea until you get it. And if you begin to get it, you begin to realize, I'm dancing through life. I'm not struggling through life. Most everybody's struggling through life. Warring and battling and trying to get there. And as long as you're warring and battling and struggling, you're not dancing. Because when you dance, you settle down. Why? It's a happy experience. It's something you want to experience. You want to enjoy it. So you're enjoying the journey. Well, if you're struggling, you're not enjoying it. Right? I'm working my ass off here, y'all. I'm trying my best to get there. And the more you work, the harder you try to do it, the harder it seems to be, right? Yeah. But if you're just dancing, you're just going through the day in joy and enjoying it, experiencing it. You have to realize my experiences are not all good. Sometimes they're horrible. Sometimes I've created through my own imaging. You understand what that is? That's imaginations. That's what a cherubim is. I thought a cherubim was an angel. No, a cherubim is come from the Hebrew word karub, which means the ability to imagine. It's created by the energy of the Elohim, the different angles of the sun in the sky. Gives you this ability to imagine. Have you ever imagined something that you wished you hadn't imagined and can't get rid of the imagine? And it just haunts you and over, and you say, oh, what the hell, I don't want to think this no more. And you think it, and you think it, and then you think it's real. And then you act on it, and it ain't real. And you're in trouble now. I know that don't happen to you. That happens to me. So, finally, transfiguration can only be accomplished through, he says action, I replace that with dance. I'm going to explain a little bit more what I mean when I say that. It's accomplished through dance. That is through will to think or to stop thinking. That's what the dance is. The dance is centered in your will. Not somebody else's will, not somebody else's want to. It's centered in your will, and your will is your ability to do for yourself. To think or stop thinking. The world we live in is a world of activity. A conflict. That's his word. And that's what most people's word would be. A conflict. It's like I told y'all, years and years ago, I used to meet down here with a bunch of the men. I don't remember, Bruce may even come down with us sometime. And we would go out there at 6 o'clock in the morning from 6 to 7. We're going to pray for an hour. And generally what we call praying is we would either express ourselves in other tongues, or we would start fussing at the devil. Devil, I bind you. I command you to be loose. I command you to... And just go off. And for 1 hour, as hard as we could go, tried to do it at least that long, for 1 hour, we just commanding and loosening and binding and, everything in the whole world, bless God. Conflict. And that's exactly what we taught people, and that's exactly how we acted. We got to war the great war. When we finished the battle, we won. Hallelujah. If we don't fight the war, that don't work, folks. That keeps you struggling. But if you get out there and you realize, hey, this is a dance. I'm out here to enjoy. I'm out here to experience this. So I'm changing this word from conflict to this. It's a dance. And here's what he says. I'm going to say it's a dance between light and darkness. And the reason I say there is no conflict between the sun in the daylight up here, or above this mark right here, sunrise, and this mark right here, sunset, and all this up in here is daytime, and all this down here is nighttime. There's no struggle, there's no war, there's no battle going on with the sun in daylight and dark, night and day. There is none. It's a beautiful dance. It's smooth. It's not jittery or jerky or any other kind of thing. It moves smoothly and powerfully. It is a dance between light and darkness. It's a dance between knowledge and ignorance. It is a dance between good and evil, or in other words, your right and your left. This is what I'm talking about when I'm referring to balancing the power, balancing your ability to be. It's a dance. It's a swirling energy. And I do like that because many times a dance can be a swirl, because in a dance, you're not always just moving forward. How many of you recognize many times in a dance you're moving backwards? Have you ever moved forward and said, oh God, I take 1 forward and 2 backwards? I know y'all never said that. Oh no, that's the story of life. 1 forward, 2 backwards. I seemed like I crawled out of the hole and fell deeper in it. Now if we learn to dance, we begin to realize, oh, it's an experience. It's some marvelous experiences. So, He says it's a swirling energy, a nebular force, a stellar force, a planetary force, a human force. It is a world of perpetual revolutions, a cosmos, a chaos, a void, a spark of new thoughts, and then once again a cosmos, a chaos, a void, and a shadow of dead thoughts. Nature abhors a vacuum. Hence, life is the plenitude which fills it, a plenitude which of necessity can never stand still. Each true thought, a thought full of light, which flashes on the darkness which surrounds it. And I'm going to tell you, if the thought didn't have the darkness to shine itself into, neither one would be. They require each other. See, where did I get to here? Nature abhors the vacuum. Hence, life is the plenitude which fills it, a plenitude which of necessity can never stand still. Each true thought, a thought full of light, which flashes on the darkness which surrounds it, is a Christ. See, and we've just done so much with that word, it's hard for us to think of a thought as a Christ. Because see, we go, there again, what did we do? That's a man's name. No, it ain't. They told you it was a man's name. You know, it comes from the word Christos, which actually means an unction and an anointing. And that anointing actually flows through the center column of balance. That's why it says, that's why you have this Libra. This Libra has the center column. That center column is your nerve column that flows from the top of your head to your pelvis and to the soles of your feet. And it carries all of your experiences in it. All your nerves. Oh, my nerves is on the edge. It's the Christ unto this world. When three such thoughts, one in the physical realm, one in the moral, and one in the intellectual or spiritual, simultaneously flash forth, then a messianic age is begotten. This is a threefold deliverance which the world is waiting on. How I interpret his words is, what are they waiting on? They're waiting on you and me to learn to balance the powers that be. The powers of my ability. Not what's going on in Washington, not what's going on in the world. It's what's going on in my world. And when I can do that, as I do that, and so I write notes in all of my books, and these are my notes, and this is what I wrote. There is no conflict between light and darkness. There is no war between cold and hot. There is no struggle between summer and winter. A man and a woman on a dance floor are not in a ring fighting each other. They are moving in creative fashion. And so your masculine and your feminine are not battling with each other. They're moving in a creative fashion. And learning to find peace and learning to settle down in that creative fashion is where you and me come to that place where everything is okay. Everything's going to be fine. No matter how the battle looks and no matter how far the struggle is going on, it's going to be okay. Okay, I want you to go with me to the book of Hebrews. Let me move on real quickly because I want to get a few more things here. The book of Hebrews chapter 9. If you're there in 1 Peter, you just go over a book. You're right next door to it. Hebrews chapter 9. So if I were to take Aries, let me show you Aries. I'm going to do it right here on my little man. Okay. These are the 7 yawns. This is dividing him, separating his right and left hemisphere. And then I do it right here. You notice how when I do this right here, I connect Libra, the pelvic, to the top of the brain. I'm balancing these powers, your left side and your right side. And that's what you and I are going to do. That's what we're working at, that in that fashion, in that place. Okay, go with me to Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 1. We'll just read this. He says, the first, and I'll throw this out to you if you're there. I want you to be there. I'm looking at the King James translation. And the King James translation has these words, it's all through it, everywhere, and they're called italicized words. Y'all familiar with that?
Yeah.
In the King James translation. But then you had New American Standard, New International Version, and a lot of these other more modern versions of the Bible, Amplified, Interlinear, gosh, there's just so many of them. I used to have 10 or 15 different translations. But anyway, they all basically come out of the King James translation. And the King James translation is one of the most, they say, most grammatic and poetical, but it's also one of the most filled with error translations you can get. It is nowhere near accurate to either Greek or Hebrew, either one. But we use it, I use it because of its popularity mainly. And it also has become my study tool to go back into the ancient Hebrew. So it's sad that people don't know that, because people take it and they think every word of it is inspired by God. You can't twist or change any bit of it. And people don't even know what the words mean when they read it. So when I read this, let me show you this. Verse 1, chapter 9, verse 1. Then verily the first, and what's the next word?
Covenant.
What does it look like?
Italicized.
It's italicized. It's not even in the translation. It's not even in the Greek or the Hebrew. Simply because, and I want to say this, and this is totally contradictory, I mean it's really difficult. There is no new covenant and old covenant. There is none. You won't find it anywhere. There is none. Now there is a covenant that God made, and that covenant that God made was a covenant with the physical, which is Hagar, and it's a covenant that God made with the spiritual, which is divine, which is Sarah. Both Hagar and Sarah are only pictures. They're not literal. They're not real people. They're pictures. What are they a picture of? They are a picture of the covenant that God made both with the physical and the spiritual. And the covenant God made with the physical is it will reproduce after itself according to its kind. And the covenant God made with the spiritual is it will reproduce after the covenant of its kind. It's that way. And you and I are put here in this dimension of matter, material, manifest, in a beautiful dimension that is a potential heaven on earth or hell on earth by your own choosing. Not a place to go to, a place to be. A place to be manifest the way God built you to manifest, because God built you as itself, a mirrored image of itself, a reflection of itself. And so we get into all these battles and struggles between the old covenant and the new covenant. You get under the new covenant, you got to get under this blood sacrifice. And God said, in the Old Testament, God said time and time again, I don't like your blood sacrifices. They stink in my nostrils. I'm ashamed of you for being that way or doing that. God wasn't pleased with them. God didn't institute them. He did? No, He didn't. They did. They did. Created laws with them and around them. For verily the first had ordinances of divine sanctuary and a worldly sanctuary. Did you see that? Had two. Had both the divine and the human side of it. It's supposed to. Because there's not anything wrong with either one. It's what you and I do with it. And what you and I do with it is not right or wrong. What you and I do with it, it manifests. It materializes. You know, we are designed, you have to put this in again, put this in your hash pipe and smoke it, and you'll get some really good stuff out of it. But if you'll think about this with me and just chew on it and muse on it, you can extract out of this life health, wealth, abundance, or not. Or the other things. How is that? Well, look at Moses. Moses, his name, Moshe. That's his Hebrew name. Mem Shin He, Moshe. Actually, it means drawn up or created from a water base. And that's the story of Moses, isn't it? He come forth, and what's the first thing you do? They draw him up out of the water, out of the base. That's what his name means. It's a type of you and me. Moses' life is a type of mine and your life. And it says that he was 120-year-old. His eye was not dim, nor was his vigor abated. It means he was 120-year-old. He was still strong and able to make a baby. healthy, vigorous, and could see. Well, what happens to us? Life. Life comes in, runs over us, we let it take advantage of us, and then lo and behold, we got to get old. But it's not designed that way. It's designed if you want to live it 120 years and lay it down. That's perfectly fine. I'm thinking that would be, to me, I would rather embrace that idea than to say, oh, dear God, I'm just going to get old and decrepit. No, I'm too old to do that. That's your choice. I'm saying that it's a choice. I'm saying life is given to you as a choice, and we can make good choices or we can make not good choices. Or you could say bad choice. I just say not good. It's just not the right choice. It's not the best choice it could make. And you have that opportunity. I have that opportunity every day. Every day it gives me a choice. Okay, verse 2 says, for there was a tabernacle. The first was wherein was a candlestick and table of showbread, which is called the sanctuary. After the second veil, the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all. And you can see this right and left here in the tabernacle and everything in the pictures. These are all pictures. You know, they tried to go and find this stuff and they ain't never found it because they never will find it because it never was literal. It's like looking for the tabernacle of Solomon. They can't find it. Well, we're going to dig it up one day. It never was. It's a mythology. It's a type. It's a mirror. Oh, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, verse 4, it says, which had a golden censer and an ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein the gold pot that had manna and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tablets of the covenant. And over it the cherubims. You see that word cherubims? That's the Hebrew word kadrub. And that word kadrub, the cherubim, the kadrubs, the word means imaginary figures or ability to use your imagination. Do you know the first place that you see this word? It's not right there in Exodus that's where most people say, oh, that's where we find these cherubs. And you remember what the way they draw this out. They draw this out, the Ark of the Covenant, which is actually the mercy seat. And right above this mercy seat were these guys, and they spread their wings. Oh, this one got real excited. He spread his wing a little too far. They spread their wings out over. Y'all remember the picture?
Yep.
The picture is the picture of this right here. It's the picture of this. The Ark of the Covenant.
Neat.
The wings of the cherubim. Where's your imagination? Your imagination works not only in your brain, it works right all the way up to here. It works in your heart. It works in your pelvic. Your imagination comes from your mind. It doesn't come from your brain. Your brain is an organ that responds to your mind. Your brain is an organ that responds to your imaginations. Your heart is an organ. It responds to your mind. It responds to your imaginations. Do you see that? Do you understand that? So this is what he's saying. This is what he's talking. And over he laid him out with the golden shadow of the mercy seat, which we cannot speak of particularly. Go with me to Exodus chapter 25. I'll quit right here. This is where we will see the picture of this. Actually, if you wanted to, you can go to, just go to Exodus. I'll just quote you this. I'll just quote you this or read it to you, but you go over to Exodus. I'm just reading you to this mistranslation of Genesis chapter 3. Mistranslation. Because you remember, God created Adam and Eve. That's what we said. That's what we thought. Actually, God created Esh and Esha. Which Esh and Esha is not Adam and Eve. Esh and Esha. Esh is the fire side of your brain, the seed side. Esha is the female or the womb side of your brain, the creative side. And that's exactly what those two words mean. That's the word for man and woman in Genesis chapter 2. The word for woman in Genesis chapter 2 is not Eve. Eve don't appear until the end of the 3rd chapter. She's just not there. Okay? She's in, it's the man and the woman. It's Esha and Esha. That's fire and the womb for fire. Because the male seed is born in fire, which is light. That's what gives birth to the seed, light. And the seed is manifest in the womb for light. Okay? Well, I'll read this to you.
Where are you?
I'm in Genesis chapter 3. I want to be in Exodus chapter 25. And I'll just read you this because it's the first time you see the word cherub, cherubim. Verse 24, Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. So he drove out the man that he had placed at the east of the Garden of Eden, that he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden, cherubs. Now what does that mean? Well, let me read the rest of it. Cherubs and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Now what is that saying? In Hebrew, that's not saying that God got mad at this couple and run them off from this special garden somewhere on the earth, because the Garden of Eden is the physical body. The word Eden means in time. And it's what God placed. God is timeless. This energy is timeless. But it placed itself in time. And in its placing of itself in time, in that time, it's restricted to that vehicle, but not restricted. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like God is deposited in you unlimited only through your thoughts or your thinking abilities. Is God limited? That's God's not limited. And so if you and me release God to be all God can be, we release the source, the energy, the power to be all the power can be through me, it can be powerful. But if I restrict it because I say I can't. Now my grandpa hated that word. He said, I'd rather hear you cuss than don't you ever tell me you can't. I can't do that, Grandpa. No, you can't. He placed these flaming swords. And so we have this picture drawn to us by religion that somehow or another out here's all these angels that's swinging all these swords saying, y'all can't come back this way. You can't come back in here because the tree of life's in here. Actually, that's not at all true. It's like a neon flashing light that's standing out there saying, hey, here is the way to the tree of life. Come and eat of the tree of life. It's exactly the opposite of how the translation seems to be giving it to us. And it's through your ability to imagine yourself, this is how you're going to find yourself stationed in your tree of life. All powerful. Yeah, that would have been a good place. Somebody say hallelujah. Exodus 25. Just real quickly. It says in verse 8, it says, and let them make a sanctuary that I may dwell. And actually the Hebrew word dwell is shakon, and actually it means to lodge or to habit, be a habitant. To lodge itself. That I may dwell, that I may make a habitation. Where? Among them. The word among in the Hebrew is lavek, and it actually means within. That I may habitate where? Within them. Well, we thought you was going to be a cloud in the day and a fire by night. And it is. And it is. According to all, verse 9, according to all that I will show you after the pattern of the tabernacle, the pattern of all the instructions thereof, even so shall you make. And you know where he says that pattern is at? He says that pattern is in the sky. Right here it is. The pattern is in the sky. So where's Abraham always looking to? The stars. Why? Because it's the pattern. This is the pattern, the astrological wheel. It's always there. The pattern is the pattern of you. It's how God built you. And just come down with me to verse 21. And thou shalt put the mercy seat above the ark, and in the ark thou shalt put the testimony that I shall have given you, and there I will meet with you. I will commune with you from above the mercy seat, from between the two. Look here. I'll meet with you from between the two. Look at this. God's going to meet with you between your male and your female, between your right hemisphere and your left hemisphere. God will meet between the two and balance the powers of each out. And that's a choice that you can make. Nobody can make that choice for you. That's only we can make that choice. But that's where God will meet. That's a picture. That's not a literal building built, and that's why they can't find it. It's a picture of God's plan for both of us, for all of us, for my left and my right, all the powers. Okay, well, I'm going to quit right there, and we'll pick up here next Sunday. Because I wanted to get in a whole lot more on the mercy seat, the cherubims. It's a beautiful story. It just when you see it as it unfolds, you realize how powerful you really are. And you begin to pay attention to yourself. You know, what you say, you might be able to get. You better watch out.